Good morning, dear friends. No sound? Can you hear me? Not loud enough. Huh, that's interesting. Well,
it came through for a minute, then it disappeared again.
This is a test of the Buddha Broadcasting Network. That's good now?
Just a little bit.
I think, I'm not sure what a thumb means. Does that mean go louder, or does that mean it's great?
It's good, Robert.
It's okay. I think it's your end, Jim. Your ears have gone dim.
It's the brain.
Have you got it now? All right. There's so many little nerdly things to adjust. It's amazing. Well, July the 17th, according to some. Another nice day here in Portland. The machines have started in the construction site beside me. You can hear the backup beep, I guess. Well, I'm grateful to be alive. I'm grateful that you're here. And I'm grateful for the Dharma and for Ruth and for good enough health for the moment. Lovely to see your faces. Strengthening. Hello to those of you joining us on Facebook and YouTube. Looks to me like it's all working at the moment, so may it persist. You can always join us on Zoom. You can get there by going to portlandinsight.org and following the links. All right, a poem. This is not a dukkha poem, it's a sukha poem. It's about pleasure and happiness. Naomi Shihab, American-Palestinian poet. So much happiness. It's difficult to know what to do with so much happiness. With sadness, there's something to rub up against, a wound to tend with lotion and cloth. When the world falls in around you, you have pieces to pick up, something to hold in your hands like ticket stubs or change. But happiness floats. It doesn't need you to hold it down. It doesn't need anything. Happiness lands on the roof of the next house singing and disappears when it wants to. You are happy either way. Even the fact that you once lived in a peaceful treehouse and now live over a quarry of noise and dust cannot make you unhappy. Everything has a life of its own. It too could wake up filled with possibilities of coffee cake and ripe peaches, and love even the floor which needs to be swept, the soiled linens and scratched records. Since there's no place large enough to contain so much happiness, you shrug. You raise your hands and it flows out of you into everything you touch. You are not responsible. You take no credit. As the night sky takes no credit for the moon, but continues to hold it and share it, and in that way be known. It's difficult to know what to do with so much happiness. With sadness, there's something to rub against, a wound to tend with lotion and cloth. When the world falls in around you, you have pieces to pick up, something to hold in your hands like ticket stubs or change. But happiness floats. It doesn't need you to hold it down. It doesn't need anything. Happiness lands on the roof of the next house singing and disappears when it wants to. You are happy either way. Even the fact that you once lived in a peaceful treehouse and now live over a quarry of noise and dust cannot make you unhappy. Everything has a life of its own. It too could wake up filled with possibilities of coffee cake and ripe peaches and love, even the floor which needs to be swept. the soiled linens and scratched records. Since there is no place large enough to contain so much happiness, you shrug, you raise your hands, and it flows out of you into everything you touch. You are not responsible. You take no credit, as the night sky takes no credit for the moon, but continues to hold it and share it, and in that way be known. Naomi Shihab Nye. Thank you, Naomi. I want to try something here. I hope I don't blow everything up. I'm going to take my camera from the top of my computer. Wait. I want to set it so I can see what it's seeing. There. And I've planted grass on the site where the Buddha Broadcasting Network tent was, and it's just doing that exquisite new grass thing. Oop. Can you see it there, that little hint of green? Oh, and a dog behind it. This is the birth of grass. It's so cool. I water it each night automatically, and it's growing stunningly. Seeds are so weird. A little bit of this, and you throw it on the ground in the right spot, and boom! All right, let's have a little reflection upon refuge. In what shall we take refuge? I guess by now it's clear that where we're headed. I take refuge in money, power, a private jet. Now that would do it. They got like an island in the Caribbean. Or I take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows me the way in this life. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya. I take refuge in the Dharma, the way of understanding and love. Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya. I take refuge in the Sangha, the community of mindful harmony. Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya. That's very comforting to me. Familiar, ancient. I take refuge in being awake, in what is revealed in that awakeness. And I do this in the company of my dear Dharma friends. So let's sit. Life is unfolding exactly as it is right now. There's the challenge in relationships. There's the promise of positive things to come today. There's the good news. There's the sick parent who we're all waiting for the biopsy to see what's really happening. There's the child who learned to walk yesterday, finally could let go of the cruising objects. There's what's happening in the political world, the COVID world. And right now, here, there's just this. This body that sits here, plopping into this body, dropping in, choosing to be present in this living form. Noticing how the body makes contact with the cushion or the chair or the floor. With bare attention, greeting the actual contact. With bare attention, observing how thoughts arise. That which is aware of thoughts is different from the thoughts. They co-arise. But there is mind and matter. There is awareness and its objects. And there is the beginning, middle, and ending of each breath. Some Sometimes the enlightenment factors will be blossoming and be in balance. Mindfulness and curiosity and energy, persistence, concentration, tranquility, and equanimity, and at their apex, joy or happiness or contentment. Beatty, feeling in the body of life energy. At such times, simply bask, simply abide in that, rest in it. At other times, there's struggle and uncertainty, confusion, restlessness, desire, aversion, all the 5 hindrances. Sometimes there's sadness or despair. We make room for it all as it all arises and passes away. It's like it washes up on the beach. Forces, vast forces, previous karma create this moment, the ripening of this moment. And we use this mystery of breathing in and breathing out as our home base. Come home, abide in breathing, in the sensations, in the life of this moment. Time and again we fall into trances. The trances of the self, the song with the words I, me, mine, mine. The trances flourish themselves and get very complex. And waking up is always the same. It's just realizing, oh, right, wandering mind. Back to breathing. Back to now. Allowing the breath to become a delicious resting place. as if you came upon a hammock in a clearing and just climbed in, resting there with the arising and passing of this breath in this moment. It does take a certain effort, a certain remembering, sati, mindfulness, a certain concentration, which isn't about tensing muscles. It's not about tensing anything. Come home and rest or abide in the life of this moment. A part of this practice that we rely upon in a way that is essential is carrying it over into daily life. It's like going to the gym to strengthen the quadriceps before skiing. It's the skiing that's really fun. The gym is work and can be fun. It's life that really is where the challenges are. And so we go to the weight room of meditation and strengthen concentration and mindfulness and the other wholesome factors. Looking forward to today, I invite you to think of something that you're going to do. Maybe there's a plan. You've got a trip to the grocery store, or you're having a socially distanced picnic with a friend, or there's house cleaning to do, or taking care of a child. There's bathing in the near future. Imagine doing that with really heightened mindfulness. As you're taking off your clothes and getting into the shower, slowing down just a little bit, 5%. Recognizing the skill that's involved in undoing a button, or the privilege that's engaged or involved in having hot water to adjust to be just right. Or maybe it's making yourself a piece of toast. How much love and gratitude can you bring to pushing down the toaster? Or maybe it's opening the fridge for the cream, for that coffee that was imported from somewhere else on the planet. How much love and gratitude can you bring to that moment? And mindfulness. Driving the car. Huge responsibility. When you get to the door of the car, recognizing what you're doing, opening the door, bending, getting in. Take a few moments, maybe 5 or 10 seconds, and breathe mindfully, realizing you're sitting in a ton or so of steel. Actually, probably a lot of plastic too at this point. This is a very risky business, driving a car. Why not take the refuges? Remember, I intend to drive consciously. I intend to notice, and with great love and compassion, notice turning left, turning right. Recognizing, taking a moment to see the drivers in other cars. Filling the environment around you with love and compassion. Increasingly living in a world where you are remembering to remember to be mindful, and also to bring kindness and sensitivity and mercy. Or maybe there's a moment today when you'll be wearing a mask. Placing your mask on your face very mindfully. Realizing that in doing that, it's an act of kindness to everyone around you. It's also an act of kindness for yourself. Place that mask on your face with love. And see everyone else around you who has a mask on. See them as acting in love to protect you and to protect themselves. On an in-breath, wish yourself well. On an out-breath, wish all beings well. Bringing awareness and life now to the hands. They are so alive. To the face. To the whole body. Bring a little tiny smile to the corners of your lips. The whole body smiles. If we wait till everything's okay to allow ourselves some happiness, we'll never have any happiness. Because it just doesn't happen that everything's okay, because when it's okay, it begins to fall apart. So gleaning some happiness in a world that is birthing and deathing all the time. And now bringing awareness into the eyes, the sensations of eyes. And letting the eyes open, or more accurately, making the effort for the eyes to open. And seeing. Seeing happens. Well, I guess it's last call for Jim's Qigong tomorrow.
Yeah, please be invited to 4 hours of poetry and sitting and mindful movement. And there's a spot on the PortlandInsight.org where you can click a button and register. I'll put that link in the chat before too long. And then look forward to seeing you tomorrow at 9 a.m. till 1. Have a good day.
Thanks, Jim. I should just put this out there too, that I am today going to the center, and I'm going to pace off the garden, the backyard. And I think I'm going to take some lime with me, from garden lime. I'm going to mark spots to see how many people we could actually get into the backyard. And then if one of these weeks, not this week, maybe next week, when the weather looks really stable over the weekend, I'm going to invite people to come for the Sunday morning broadcast. Would happen live there in the backyard. And we'll have it we're going to really organize it carefully. I've seen how grocery stores and different places have set it up so that people can safely enter, and we'll have a morning of gathering together there. And I'm hoping actually that some of the people who never come to these broadcasts will get wind of it, and they would be able to come and join us. So I had a request. Someone remembered me telling a story, personal story, at a retreat. And it is one of the things that I share with some frequency. And it had to do with this what to do when we're really hurting, and what compassion is, and what sympathy is, and so on. And it was a radical moment of learning. And it goes like this. I was on a retreat with Stephen Levine. He was doing a death and dying retreat. And he created an environment that was really safe, and people brought extraordinary griefs there. And at this particular retreat, Ruth Denison was teaching. I think she was teaching right after Stephen, and so she was there a few days early. And a circumstance happened one afternoon where a woman shared the story of her daughter who had been abducted, raped, and killed. And the woman was freaking out. She was really, really dropped into extraordinary grief. And I, as was my capability at that time, I was very touched by her story, and I found myself sobbing as well. And that evening, Ruth asked me, "Robert, what was happening there in the Dharma hall?" I hadn't realized she was in the Dharma hall. She was behind me. "What was happening?" And I said, "Well, I was, what do you mean?" And I explained, and I said, I was crying. That's such a sad story. And she said something like, "Well, you just seemed so comfortable doing that." And I got a little defensive, though it was Ruth, so that didn't last particularly long. And then I asked her, "Well, what else could I do?" And she said, "Well, you could try the next time that opportunity arises to go into that place of deep sobbing. Try not going there. Just stay present." And an opportunity arose the next day. And so my habitual tendency to go to what I thought was supportive of this woman as well, the deep sobbing place, it came up, and I realized there was a choice. I could go there or not, which was a first in my life. I'd never seen the choice. I'd never known that there was a crossroads there. And I didn't go there. And what happened was, a profound level of compassion opened up, an experience that I had never really had before in a stable way like that. And I was able to sit there, and the possibility, the impulse to sob was there, but there was also this sense of holding or deeply caring for the circumstance of this woman and for all the other women and children and all of us here on the earth with this, where there is so much suffering and anguish and hardship. And as I then explored that over time, I realized that the terminology that I use is, and this relates to the equanimity thing that I shared yesterday of what to do when the suffering of the world is so big. I'm experiencing some interruption and irritation with this beeping machine behind me. It's kind of close. I know it's not going to get me, but it's loud. Oh, there's another one. There's two of them. They're singing. It's whales singing. How about that? So the terminology that I use is sympathy. Oh, I can do it, actually. Well, I can't do it. I don't have a piece of paper. There's a term in physics called sympathetic vibration. And in my guitar, if I put a little piece of paper over one of the strings, and then I tuned or fretted another string, at a certain point when they were both vibrating in the same frequency, there would be sympathetic vibration. The second string, the one with the paper, would start to vibrate and the paper would come off. It would vibrate sympathetically with the first one. Sympathy isn't very helpful when we're trying to support someone. When I was going into sympathy with that woman and vibrating at the frequency she was, I was very involved in my own old grief, my unfinishedness, and I really couldn't be there for her. Now, the terminology that I like to use is empathy, and I see empathy and compassion as being synonyms. In empathy or compassion, there's the sense of, there's the opening to it and the recognition, yes, I get this. And how can I be present? How can I help you? How can I be present? This is challenging, the noise. How can I simply be here and help create a container for this other person to have this extreme experience? And it really doesn't mean one becomes not feeling or not caring. In fact, it enhances the capacity of caring a lot. Actually, a dear friend of mine, he's now 95, Don Nickerson, my first therapist and a great mentor. At one point, decades ago, he went through a difficult circumstance and we went to lunch together, and I remember doing this sympathetic thing with him, getting teary with him and so on. And a year or so later, we were talking, and he pointed out how that afternoon when we went out to lunch together, he didn't find my response to him particularly helpful. In fact, he didn't seek me out any further for some time because he was aware of losing me. I got lost into my own stuff, and I wasn't able to be there and in a supportive place. And there's also something of this in terms of with just our own experience. We may well have habitual ways we respond. When I'm sad, I do this. When I'm angry, I do this. And one of the things we develop through the meditation is the capacity to be mindful and aware and observe, oh, here, this is what's happening now. Or there's another option here available to me. I just remembered another encounter I had around this sadness thing. It was with Matt Flickstein in on the East Coast at one of those retreats I did with him. He invited someone in the group to come up and face him and work with him directly. And I forget most of the context, but the active ingredient was I started to tear up and get emotional, and no one in that group ever got emotional. It was kind of an emotionless group, and I suddenly became ashamed, and then I was just and anyway, the intervention was he looked at me and he said, "Stop, don't go there." And what he pointed out, and it worked perfectly, was I was just about to fall into shame. And it turned out that falling into shame was an old habit pattern that was optional. If there was enough mindfulness, I didn't have to go into the shame. So these are both instances where mindfulness allows a shifting out of the personality. This is how I do it. This is how we did it in my family of origin. This is how I figured out how to do myself. But to realize that with mindfulness and a little slowing down, we may have another choice in many, many circumstances. And that choice would be in the direction of love and compassion and the 7 enlightenment factors. Get my 5s and 7s mixed up. So, I should look up here because I think this person was watching on, who requested this was watching on Facebook, I think. So I hope that's helpful, and I'm open to questions about that or whatever else sharing-wise you have. It's not hard-heartedness.
Robert, if you have a moment.
I do.
I'm new to this group and I'm really grateful for it. I've been dropping in when I can. And I've heard this story before. I'm so glad you revisited it because last time you said it, I had the same question. So with sympathetic grief, I really understand that story, and I've had that myself when, holding someone else's grief. But I wonder, and then you talked about personal grief, and I translate that to anxiety or pain in other ways. And I'm wondering if you feel that same practice of just staying mindful and not going into crying or emotion is helpful. For me, when I have personal grief or pain or issues, I'm more of a compartmentalizer where I don't feel it at all and I just get into action and I never feel it. So
in your case, when and you know that's wonderful that you know that. So then look for the smallest piece of affect or like the lump in the throat or a little bit and go there and go into the grief and express it.
Okay.
And express it safely. Seek support if you need support. Sometimes I have needed sometimes a hand to hold before I could enter certain states, and then to allow it to manifest itself. It's a biophysiologic, electronic, emotional experience. To let it really happen fully and relax completely into it, and then the choice point will come and you realize, oh, okay, that's done for now. But there is a tendency among Buddhists to compartmentalize, to overemphasize the compartmentalization side. And so it's to be, I just thought of a quote about Carl Jung. I am from the West, not from the East. My goal is wholeness, not purity. Not purity and not transcendence. It's to be fully human. Yeah. And I had specialized. It wasn't like I had great access to all my feelings. I could easily go to sadness and despair and so on. No way I could get angry. Forbidden. Compartmentalized. Thank you very much. I am a good boy. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. That's helpful.
Yeah. Hi, Robert. Can I offer
Tim,
something?
sure.
Yes. A model that I've found really helpful, it's kind of called the bullseye model, and the person with the illness or the need is in the middle. and then the people closest to them are the next circle, and then it goes on out to casual friends. And the guidelines are that the person in the middle gets to grieve, wail, complain, gritch outwards, but the people outward don't get to share their, in other words, Janet couldn't come to me and say, I'm so sad because you're suffering. I'm so sad because you're dying. Because then I get to have to deal with her sadness and my friend's sadness and other people's insecurities. So it's just basically bad stuff can go out from the middle and good stuff can come in.
Nice model.
It's very helpful. I mean, the ultimate is the woman who was dying and the friends wanted to have a party for her to acknowledge her. And she said, I'm not ready for that. And the woman actually said to her, this isn't just about you. It's like, anyway, I find that really, really helpful. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim.
Robert, I had a
David.
an experience along those lines that is very similar. Shortly after I moved to Richmond, I got a job working as a standardized patient at the medical school here, which it's a fairly new thing where it's actually part of the curriculum where actors or other people, it tends to be actors doing piecemeal work, are involved in the medical students' training. Shorthand is how to be human, how to be in service to the patient, that it's about the patient. And there are lots of different role plays that we do with the medical students and sometimes postgrads. But in dealing with grief and these emotional experiences that come up, we were trained and worked with them to know the difference between sympathy and empathy. And it's like as you described, but the way we presented it to them is that you're in service to the patient. This is about the patient, and the difference between sympathy and empathy is not to be in their experience, but to just be there with them. And that if you do start to cry, then you are sharing their experience rather than being there with them. And which is duplicating what you said, but the metaphor that we used that I thought was really powerful was when someone has fallen into the river, do you help them by falling into the river with them, or by being a rock to which they can hold? And what they need is something to hold on to at a time when they're feeling lonely, when they're afraid, when they're feeling isolated, and just to be there with them to let them know they're not alone. Which was it was very helpful. A lot of the students responded well to that.
Thanks, David. Where's that picture that's behind you? That's an interesting thing.
That's Interlochen Arts Center up in Interlochen, Michigan. It was a formative time in my life. At that time, it was the National Music Camp. I went there for 3 summers, for 8 weeks in the summer. And we just had a big 60s reunion, and that's a background from, those are practice huts. They're stone and timber and concrete.
It looks like that kind of place. Nice.
Northern Michigan, it's a wonderful, wonderful place.
Thanks, David.
Then there's also the cat who shares your meditation with me.
I see. No, I want to go back to Juliet. To your question, and be sure to underline the that this is about giving space and choice. We learned strategies and defense mechanisms in childhood that got us through. We survived, and there were certain things our parents could or couldn't tolerate, or could or couldn't support. And so it's not about either or. It's not about feeling deep feelings and emoting them, nor is it about repressing them. It's about having the capacity to do both. To do both in the right in the skillful moment. Yeah.
Thank you.
Robert.
B.
B. Hi.
Good morning.
Good morning. I wanted to ask a little bit about this idea of sometimes crying with other people. I had a therapist, and there were times when I would be talking about something that was troubling to me, and tears would come to her eyes, and I always felt profoundly acknowledged by that. She didn't delve into her own pain, of course, but there was something about that that acknowledged to me that the pain I was feeling was real. And I think about that, and I also think about cultures where people cry with each other. And I just wondered if you could speak a little bit. Is there a space for that? Is that different than what you're talking about in terms of this?
It sounds like that your therapist did. I have no idea about other cultures. Figuring my own out is so weird. But it sounds like your therapist was very skillful in what you were speaking of was obviously painful and difficult, and it helped you to be validated. Yup, this can disturb people. And then she was right there with you for you to have your experience. So it sounds like she was very skillful. And, there's no hard, fast rules. Sometimes maybe it's incredibly important for the other person to cry with. Sometimes what's emerging in as we unpack ourselves can also be things like anger or blaming or finding fault with. We can get into a place of let's say we're waking up to the fact of some abuse in childhood, and then we get into hating a parent. It doesn't help if the therapist joins with hating the parent. My father did that to me too, and so therefore men are bad, and we should. And it's having degrees of choice, I think, is really important when we're in that position of helping, and then ultimately having degrees of choice in ourselves to realize, yep, I'm really angry and I feel hate, and I'm going to witness this hate rather than identify with it. And in the coming to consciousness, there are streams of Buddhism in the Thich Nhat Hanh lineage. There's a kind of like a never ever speak in anger to another person. Always take it back until you can speak of your anger in a balanced way. That's not going to happen in a marriage or a long-term relationship. There are going to be times when the air gets cleared through conscious conflict, through conflict that's unconscious, and then maybe it becomes conscious. And so having prohibitions against any emotion or any acting is very complicating. And so what I'm hoping to get through here is to be open to what happens, and to realize that at some point we have choice about how we express our emotions to ourselves and to others. And that there are circumstances when this is the moment to repress this. Thank you very much. I'm going into a meeting. I'm going into a divorce mediation session, and I remember my therapist saying, "Leave Bobby at home." Right? This is not his venue. Plan to do something nice with Bobby later, but We don't need that little boy who will dissolve into weeping and feel weak, and we need the warrior here. So shape up. Right? Let Manjushri with the sword of discriminating wisdom be there at that negotiation session.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That helps.
Robert, this is Jim. I wanted to add something.
Jim, hello.
You know, what Juliet said and also what Bea said made me think of my role when I was practicing medicine in the pediatric ICU. Even though almost everybody gets better, some of the children die. And what I found I was doing initially as sort of a newer, less experienced doctor, whatever, is thinking, I am the doctor, and I need to sort of stay in my role as the doctor. That was kind of the compartmentalizing part. But I found that the cost to that is that when I left and came home to my family and so on, just everything was kind of locked up. I couldn't, the cost of being the doctor in that particular role and not sort of feeling anything or being in touch with anything just sort of shut me down. And then I chose to instead, in these situations, just let my feelings go, and I would cry. And I would cry not because I was revisiting the death of my own child or anything else like that. I would cry just because it was sad. And like Bea said, the parents, no one said, oh, look at that doctor over there, he's crying. I mean, it sort of made the whole thing real, I guess, in a sense. I think they kind of, perhaps they told me that. One or two parents told me that they were moved by my sadness also, and just expressing myself, because this is sort of verifying this is a real thing going on.
Yeah.
And so I think the main thing you said is choice, and I realized I did have a choice one way or another, and unfortunately over the many years these opportunities would come up, and so I think the key thing is the choosing part. Thank you.
Yeah. I just had a real soft spot in my heart as you were talking about that, and I guess a fondness for you and recognizing the service that you provided to those families over all those years. That's a lot.
Wow.
I think you deserve a little windsurfing. I believe it's 19 days till my tough shed arrives. Thank you, everybody, for your generosity and kindness, and Alicia for pulling that together. And Francine, I sent you an email about meeting and I didn't hear back, so I'll send another. I can't hear you.
Please do. I haven't received that, and I kind of need to fashion a plan about how to move forward. Thank you. Thank you.
I just didn't want you to come when I'm not here.
Well, no, not at all.
Yeah.
This discussion is great this morning. It reminded me of a way that my husband, my former husband, and I dealt with the children when they were very little. We were a family of 4. And I don't know how we started this, but remember those 8 timers that were 3-minute 8 timers? You could turn upside down, and they counted 3 minutes. Well, little children are fascinated with those bits. So when 2 children, a few years apart, when they would fuss mostly with each other, sibling issues and whine, we would take the time to listen to them, and we would all sit on the floor so that we were down at their level, put the timer out, and give the full attention to the whiner. My sister, she did, my toys, it's not fair. And everyone, the other three's job was just simply to listen. Now, occasionally we would say, oh, oh. And after 3 minutes, they would have the full floor for 3 minutes. So we would say, do you want another turn? Well, they were 3 or 4 or 6 years old. And by 3 minutes, they were bored with the whining. And usually they would say, that's it, I'm done. So just giving attention to them generally solved the problem. And if something came up, we would hold up the timer and said, does anybody need the timer? It worked for us for years. It was a good modality for the children, for sure.
Nice strategy.
Yeah. So sometimes it only takes 3 minutes.
I wonder if Jennifer would go for that if I got an egg timer. Oh dear.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Actually, I had a wonderful best friend for I was 13 years. His name was Bob Braun. He was a body worker, and we had a great relation. We met every Friday for racquetball for years. And he suddenly died. He had a stroke and died. But we had a practice that we did. We could ask for whining time, and could I have 3 or 4 minutes to whine? And we always grant it. And during that time, we could whine and complain. It was usually about our wives, and that we didn't have to. We knew that it wasn't that it wasn't the truth, and. We weren't going to be held to anything that we said. We could just be as regressed and whining as we wanted and needed to be. That was good, because you get to hear yourself. It's like, God, that's so self-indulgent. Thank you for that.
Sometimes we just need to dump.
Yeah. I just noticed something come through in the chat, which mostly I missed the chat. Yes, when and if we do a session at the center in the garden, it will be live to Zoom too, which will be a pain getting all the stuff there, but we will do it. So it's 11 after 8. Oh, Buddha's getting his breakfast. 11 after 8, and time to end soon. Is there anybody sitting with something? This is a conversation that might well have some stuff going. Well, that being the case, have we children? Where are the children? Well, that being the case, let's end with Ya Fatah. Ya Fatah is a practice. It's a wazifa practice, and it comes from the Sufis. And this particular one is one of the 101 beautiful names of God. Ya Fatah means, may the path of your heart open before you. So it's done like this. We fill our hands with our heart energy, with the goodness that we've generated and gathered in this time together. And then we cast it out into each other and through the cameras and out into the world behind whatever you're looking at. And it's, to all beings, may the path of your heart open before you. And It's, as I always like to say, it's not a namby-pamby Buddhist practice. It's you connect down to the center of the earth. And oh, there's someone. Ready for Ya Fatah. Let's do it 6 times. You ready? 1, 2, 3. Ya Fatah. Ya Fatah. Ya Fatah. Ya Fatah. Ya Fatah. Ya Fatah. Well, that was wonderful and silly, and have a lovely day. I will look forward to seeing you on Monday, or if you join in with me on Sunday at 10. It's the same link for joining on Sunday. Goodbye. Have a lovely day. Thanks for being here.
Bye. Thank you. Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Holy cow, lamb and cuttlefish.
Look at the picture.
What you got there?
Bye, everybody.
It looks like a T-Rex.
Goodbye, dear friends on Facebook and YouTube. I hope this was helpful.